Hi guys, Fernandes Limbo, another edition of On the Grid. John, last week of the regular season, a lot of rivalry games, but there is one game of more importance than the rest.
Yep.
And that involves St. Stephen's, who are playing Boca Raton Christian, semifinal game of the Sunshine State Athletic Conference. And on the phone, we got head coach Todd Cronetti. Todd, how's it going? Thanks for joining us.
Going great. Doing great. Glad to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Todd, just break down the game a little bit and maybe assess your team's standing right now. I'm sure you've broken down film. What do you see of Boca Raton Christian that's maybe different from some of your other opponents?
Well, last week we played a team that was probably 90% run game, very much a multi-back approach running the football. This week we're going to see a team that's more 70-30 pass to run. So a very different look, mostly one back. A good athletic quarterback who can extend plays to speed, and pretty traditional 4-3 up front, but with four really big kids up front. It'll probably be the biggest line we've faced all year.
Hey, Coach, obviously this season, last season, 2 successful seasons for your program. It also came along the same time as new athletic complex. How nice is that to have the complex come and then the success kind of dovetailing, and how big of a boom has that been for the program?
I think the complex was a huge boom, John. You've been around the program for a while, and you know that when we started feeling really good about football, that just happened to be about the time that the complex was opening. And it was a real public statement on behalf of the school and Dr. Pullen and the board that they were all in for athletics, or that they were all in for football. I think that just elevated the confidence of everybody involved.
Coach, when you look at the ascent of your program under your leadership, I believe you took over for Stan Brown. I think your first year you went winless, but if you look at the record since then, there's been gradual improvement up to this year. Like I said, you won your first playoff game in school history. What's been the keys to the rise of football at that school? Have they embraced it more than in past years?
Unquestionably, the big key has been the effort of our kids. The kids that continue to stick with the program, they continue to do the things we've asked them to do. They performed on the field and in the classroom. And they are believing that they are a part of something that's bigger than themselves, that that's worth really giving a great effort toward. And so I think the kids have been the key.
Coach, obviously you coach at the school. You also work at the school as well. These last few years, especially this season, what's the buzz like in the hallways? I mean, has it become where St. Stephen's now, the football team, has a presence as opposed to the last few years where, okay, we know there's a game on Friday? Is there a buzz in the hallway, a buzz on campus about this football team?
I started to sense that last year. People were definitely more interested in what was going on. I'm actually not full-time at the school anymore, so I'm there only in a coaching capacity. But I have touched base with my kids and asked my kids that question, and they absolutely feel like people are more interested in what's happening, and that the student body has really gotten involved in supporting the program.
Coach, you got a lot of nice players, 28 players, you dress out. But obviously the key is quarterback Fred Billy. He's accounted for, I believe, 29 touchdowns. He's only a sophomore. He's a southpaw. He credits you with teaching him how to learn the position. Just talk about his development. Every team needs a great quarterback, and apparently you have one.
Well, we have a lot of confidence in Fred. And what you meet in Fred the first time you meet him is this great charisma, but also this great desire to get better and to improve. And so he's really become a student of everything that we've tried to teach him. And he's taken really great natural ability, and he's been willing to refine it. He's been willing to dial some things back that he likes to do, but that we don't need him to do right now in the interest of getting the team better. And so what we've really seen from him is just this steady progression, and he continues to learn, and he continues to ask great questions. And I think when you're trying to teach somebody something, when they're asking great questions, you know that they're engaged, you know that they want to learn, and that's the kind of thing that we see from him all the time.
Last one for me, Coach. You've been kind of the road warriors this season. I know not winning your division, you had to travel. You had to go on the road last week, on the road this week to Boca Raton. If you do win this week, the championship game's in Oviedo. How has this team been able to play so well away from St. Stephen's? Because you guys take some really long trips to play some of these games.
We have, and I think one of the big keys, John, is that our kids really genuinely like each other. We've got a very unified locker room. We've got good chemistry. And so they don't mind traveling together. They don't mind being together. And our coaches have good relationships with our kids. So we look at it as an opportunity to sort of take our product on the road and see how good we can be.
Coach, last question for me. We cover 18 schools in the area, and sometimes St. Stephen's sort of gets left behind a little bit in terms of coverage. But if you were to win the title of the Sunshine State Athletic Conference, what would that mean for exposure for the school and your football team?
You know, the best way for me to answer that is to say that what it would mean for our kids is that the hard work that they've been putting in and the change in focus that they've displayed is paying off. And certainly it's great for our school, but you know, we can't worry about exposure, and we can't worry about where we rank in the county or anything like that. We just need to go to the field every day and get better and develop young men who can lead the field and be better fathers and husbands and leaders. And that's our goal. And playing great football is a part of that. And we've had a goal all season long to play championship caliber football. So if we're able to accomplish that goal, then we feel like we've really done something.
Coach, I was out there yesterday. You have a great bunch of kids. They look very confident. We'll be looking forward to see how you guys do against Boca Raton. We just want to thank you for joining us on the grid, and hopefully we'll talk to you going forward.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate the invite.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks,
Bye-bye
Coach.
now. And that was Todd Cornetti, head coach of St. Stephen's.
That it was.
It's a great story.
It really is. Yeah, it is. And as you said, I mean, the program was winless when his first year there, and you wondered what was going to happen to St. Stephen's. I mean, would they, disband the program? I mean, the enrollment numbers were low, and now here they are in the semifinals of the conference, and they win. They're in the championship game, and it is an independent conference, but still, I mean, they're in there with like-sized schools, like-minded schools, and they're winning football games. And the big thing, I think, is, as he said, the excitement level. I think people want to be a part of that program now. Some young kids, I mean, remember, St. Stephen's has kids of all grades. So there could be, kids in junior high or grade school who are there saying, hey, I want to play football for the Falcons in a few years. And that might not have been the case a few years ago. So a huge step forward this year for St. Stephen's. I'm sure they want to win 2 more games that'll really cement what's been a great year. And,
they're in the Sunshine State Athletic Conference, like we said, and I'm sure maybe not next year, but in the years to come, maybe when they establish the program even further, maybe they enter a district and they end up playing football against the 2A likes of Out of Door and Brayton Christian. Maybe that's down the road a piece.
Right. I remember one of the reasons they went to the conference is they were in a district with teams a little bigger than them. And they weren't happy with that, and they appealed, and the appeal was denied by the FHSAA, so they decided to go this route. We'll see. I mean, obviously, I don't want to speak for the program or the kids or the coaches, but I'm sure they wouldn't mind being in a district, with some local schools. I mean, that's the one knock, not one knock, but the one problem with the schedule they have is they play all these teams from out of the area. They played one local school this year, ODA. They're a big rival. So if you get into a smaller district, maybe you get some local schools in the district, maybe you can open your schedule up and play some non-district games against some, teams, maybe in St. Pete, maybe in the area. But hey, right now they're winning, the kids are involved, the kids are excited, so why knock a good thing if you're St. Stephen's?
Like we said, it's a great story. Wish them luck on Friday night. But there are other games in the area, maybe not so meaningful.
Right.
The rivalry week, but you got Braden River and Charlotte going for undefeated seasons. You got Charlotte at Palmetto, and you got Gibbs at Braden River. Should we expect both of those schools to finish undefeated, do you think, John?
I think so. I think Palmetto obviously has had a rough couple of weeks losing to Venice and Braden River. I think Charlotte right now is playing really, really well. I think Braden River has a good chance too, and it's funny for Braden River, undefeated last year. This is their first chance of a 10-0 season. They only played 9 games last year, so there is a little more history they can make. As for Charlotte, I'm sure they wouldn't mind continuing this role at Palmetto. It'll be an easy game. I think Palmetto's gonna have a lot to play for. Last game for a lot of seniors like Jack Allison. I think Coach Dave Marino is gonna pretty much demand those kids not lay down. You got one more game left, go out and play it. The funny thing is for Palmetto, if they lose tomorrow night, they finish 6-4. Their first winning season in 3 years, and they're not going to the playoffs. It's just crazy how that works out. So.
It just seems unusual that a team that took Manatee and really should have won that game the last couple of weeks have been blown out. Maybe have the players sort of not laid down, but what do you think?
I think sometimes in sports we look at the team who lost, not the teams who won. Braden River and Venice are really good.
Yes,
let's just say that. I mean, they both beat Palmetto by 35 points. I think sometimes we get so fixated on why did this team lose as opposed to, hey, they played some really, really good teams. So, obviously not the year Palmetto wanted, but, Venice and Braden River were truly the 2 best teams in that district, and they proved that.
A couple other games tomorrow night. You mentioned Manatee, rivalry game, Southeast at Manatee, and we got Sarasota at Riverview. Briefly break down those 2 games. Manatee seems like they're right where they want to be right now.
Well, it's interesting. In one game, Manatee Southeast, 2 playoff teams. Other game, Sarasota Riverview, 2 non-playoff teams. So we'll kind of see how that shakes out. I think Manatee's in a good spot, but Southeast is feeling really good. I mean, they're in the playoffs. They didn't have to worry about a tiebreaker. If they would have had that tiebreaker, it would have been a tiebreaker, then you play 4 days later. So they're fresh. They're feeling really good. They had to do what they had to do to win. I'm sure they wouldn't mind knocking off Manatee before the playoffs, having beaten the Hurricanes since '06. But I think Manatee's playing really, really well. I think Manatee will win that game. And I think Sarasota beats Riverview. That's just my prediction.
Yeah, I read in your numbers column, which I've enjoyed reading all year. No suck up intended. But Sarasota really hasn't finished even in 9 years.
Right.
I've seen them the last 3 weeks. They seem to be progressively getting better.
Right.
I would think a team having a chance to finish 500 will be a pretty good motivating factor going into the last game of the season.
Yeah, and look at the games they've lost, too.
Right.
They lost to Palmetto. They're getting blown out, made that a game. They're getting blown up at Braden River, made that a game. They were down 2 touchdowns in the first quarter of the Lakewood Ranch, won by 2 touchdowns. So this is a team that's really fought and scratched and clawed. And I think, 5-5, it does look better than 4-6 if you're a kid or if you're a coach.
Sure.
It's 500, it's something to build on. And, I think it's a big game for both teams. I think Sarasota right now is playing a little bit better than Riverview.
Right. 8 of our 18 teams are moving on to the playoffs. We're going to break those down next week with a nice graphic. But you know who's going forward.
I do.
Maybe you can just shout out the teams who are moving on.
We got Braden River. We got Cardinal Mooney, Manatee. We got Venice. We got Southeast. Am I missing anyone?
We should have these written down anyway.
I told you we should have.
What did we? I know we have 8 of them. Mooney,
Charlotte, Port Charlotte.
Charlotte, Port Charlotte, Lemon Bay.
Lemon Bay. Thank you very much. I forgot Charlotte County.
We got them all. We got them all.
No disrespect, I forgot.
Now, I've been here long enough. You've been here long enough. Not all the teams. Usually, there's after the first week, several local teams bow out.
Right.
Just looking ahead, do you expect a couple of sure bets to get out of that first week of playoffs?
It's so tough because they're all playing teams that really we haven't really even looked at this year.
Right.
Teams from Venice and Braden River are playing teams from a 3-team district.
Right.
I mean, that's always, sometimes you kind of sleep on those teams because you only had to win one game, but it's hard. It'll be interesting to tell. I'll say one thing: all the teams are pretty much playing pretty well. I know Cardinal Mooney's had struggled a little bit.
Right.
They've taken some lumps, but I mean, Lemon Bay with the way they won their district last week, in dramatic fashion, first in 12 years. We talked how well Manatee and Southeast are playing. Port Charlotte lost to Charlotte last week, but hey, they've had a great year, reaching the playoffs, so they're feeling pretty good. So I think all the teams are going in feeling pretty good about themselves. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm going to say 6 teams advance. 6 teams advance? That's what I'm picking. We'll break it down more next week. But right now, on the spot, I'm going to go with 6 of 8 teams advancing. And we're not going to say who we think those are. We just think 6 out of 8. That's what I think. We've lost the key to our lock of the week the last couple of shows. Yeah. And I know we didn't talk about it going in, but looking at the games tomorrow night, lock of the week, I'm picking Braden River. Even though Gibbs is 6-3, I think finishing undefeated is important to Braden River. So I'm going with Braden River as my lock of the week. What's yours? I'm going to go with Northport Lemon Bay. I think Lemon Bay is going to win that game. Right. It would be only their third 8-win season. And the coach, DJ Ogilvy, has done a great job this year. Yes. Said that if they win on Friday, it'll be the most wins they've had in a 2-year span. It'll be 15 wins. So I think they're feeling pretty good about their chances going to Northport, and I see them winning tomorrow night. A lot of coaches have turned around programs. Sometimes Lemon Bay, we ignore them a little bit, not intentionally, but DJ's done a tremendous job of instilling a tough culture. They lost 18 seniors. Right. They lost 18 seniors, and the district was kind of wide open, and even Coach Ogilvy said he didn't know what to expect with a brand new district. Right. But yeah, lose 18 seniors. They won that huge game at Southeast. And then last week they beat Bayshore, and then they were listening. In my story, I mentioned it. They were listening on a coach's cell phone to the Hardy DeSoto game, right. And it was kind of going. And they were in the bleachers, but everyone had left listening, and it was kind of going in and out. And then they won, and it was a pretty cool experience. That story's gonna be at htpreps.com and in the paper tomorrow. But yeah, so he's done a great job out there. And it's funny, Coach of the Year. I mean, there are a lot of people we can pick from. Coach Ogilvy's had a great year. Coach Warren over at Southeast has had a great year. Great year. Can't ignore what John Booth's done at Manatee. I mean, he lost 2 or 3 of his best players to outside stuff. 8 wins during the playoffs. So a lot of great job by coaches this season, no doubt. And our Coach of the Year pick's not going to be easy. It won't be easy. Not to discount the games tomorrow night, but the week after, big boy football starts, and we'll break down all those games with some nice graphics. So join us next week for that. For John Lembo, I'm Doug Fernandez, and thanks for joining us on The Grid.